Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you guys are in the world. I am super excited about bringing on our next guest, Miss Jean Hamilton Fford from England, of all places, right?
Yes.
England. And I'm super excited about that because it's near Cornwall, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Oh, it's in Surrey. Everything's near Cornwall because England's very small.
And so she comes to us from England, but she's originally American from the United States. So 21 years, if I remember right.
That's right.
In the UK. Good for you. So I'd like you to introduce yourself and let our audience know what it is that they do, what you do. And then we're just going to have this conversation and see where it goes. We already started having a conversation. I had to hit the record button because I could see it was going to get really good. So welcome, Jean, and thank you for allowing us to have this opportunity.
It's my pleasure, Wes, really. And for those of you who don't know me, I just create a lot of magic. Really, that's what I do. Wes said, tell them exactly what you do. And that's exactly what I do. I create magic. But I do it all through the power of intentional language and communication. So I can help business owners and entrepreneurs amplify their impact, cultivate their influence, and make more money. All through the power of language and communication.
And that's so powerful too, because communication is the most challenging thing that we struggle with as human beings, I think.
Yes, I believe so.
I went through high school and all that good stuff, and English was my worst subject. In fact, I failed it. I got a D in English. And it's funny because now that I'm in the space, I've been in the space of entrepreneurship for going on 30 years now. But when I look back at all the stuff that I could have learned in school, I should have paid more attention to English because that's what I use the most today, right? We think about copywriting and getting our message out there and all that other stuff. I'm the kind of guy, if it sounds good when I say it, it's going to sound good when I write it. and my son goes, Dad, what's a pronoun? And I go, I think that's a people name or thing, but I'm not sure. And then he starts getting into subjectives and all that stuff. And I go, I don't know. Don't ask me. Go talk to your mom.
Well, you see, Wes, communication isn't just about language. It's not about the words that we say. It's also the way that we say them and the way we present ourselves when we say them. So communication takes on all kinds of different layers.
And that's exactly true. Like I've taken several communication programs. 50% of what we say is body language, right? So you and me talking through this medium of Zoom, we're not getting that full 50% because we're only seeing the talking heads, so to speak, right? But we are getting the tone and inflection, and we're getting the words. So we're getting a big chunk of that. But I look at my daughter. She called me one time and she was freaking out because she broke up with her friend. And
Is it okay for you to talk about this? Is your daughter going to get upset with you?
Yeah, she's okay with it.
Oh, okay.
and so she said that they broke up, and I said, well, what were you guys doing? And she said, well, we were texting back and forth. And I said, well, first of all, dear, because you guys text with LMAFO and LOL and BRB, and I said, you're not even getting the 7% of the words we use. You're like maybe getting 3%. I said, you're better off, having a phone call with her, or even better yet, go see her in person and have a conversation and find out what's going on. So she did. She went and seen her in person a couple of days later, and they weren't broke up. They weren't, it wasn't that they'd gone through that. It's just miscommunication.
Miscommunication. Exactly. And that happens so often among siblings, among parents and children, among peers, among just anywhere. Even if you're going to the grocery store to buy something, it can be a miscommunication. It is so important to be as clear as you possibly can, not just with the words you use, but again, the way that you say them. And even though we're on Zoom and we don't have necessarily the best body language to use, we do have our facial expressions, which help us. And we do have, as you said, tone and inflection. If you learn body language on Zoom, you learn to keep your gestures above and not down below. And that helps enormously convey even more what you want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let me ask, how did you get into this space that you're in and how long have you been doing?
Well, how long's a piece of string, Wes? I've been doing it since I was 5, really, because at 5, I joined my sisters in a singing group. We were a very small singing group through our church. My mom played the piano and she coached us, and we sang our little hearts out. And we went around to all kinds of revivals and things. And people would come up afterwards, and I'd have the little old ladies, the bunch, they'll come up and they pinch your cheeks because, you're so cute. And they say, "Oh, you're just the little girl with the big voice." And I think, oh my gosh, thank you so much for that, because what a weight to put on a kid's shoulders, right? I was only 5, for goodness sake. And here I had this big voice. It's like, oh, geez. So I started my communication and language journey quite early on. But writing books, doing podcasts, doing blogs, talking to people all over the world, I've been doing that for quite some time. And I'm starting 2 new podcasts this year, writing a new book this year, have a TV show this year, and I'm still talking to people all over the world.
That is awesome. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about the TV show, and then we can get into the vlogs.
Well, the TV show is on Awake TV network. They are currently moving their platform, but they hope to have that resolved quite soon. So when I have links, I'll be sharing them with you. But it's Encounter Possibilities in Business through In the Hall of the Shining Ones. That's the name of it. So the Awake TV is a little bit of woo and a little bit of business.
Right.
And
right.
there are business people who love that because they come out for the business, and they might even stick around for a little bit of the woo. Who knows?
So, and your TV show is about helping entrepreneurs figure out their voice, right?
Well, my TV show is Encounter Possibilities in Business. It isn't, this season, it's not about finding their voice. I do that through my website and through my mentoring. But the TV show this season is going to be all about putting the human back into work.
Well, isn't that important, right? I was just talking to one of my my clients this morning about some of the challenges that he's having, and 99% of it can get traced right back to the culture and what they tolerate within the organization, right?
Yes.
So Encounter Possibilities, that's an interesting name.
Yes. And the whole idea is every season will be different, but this season's all about putting the human back into work. It does have a lot to do with communication, in as much as how we communicate to each other will indicate just how human we're willing to be. Vulnerability.
Absolutely. I think that's a big thing that and this might be why we're getting all zoomed out in this, post-COVID word, if we can call it post-COVID yet. We've missed out on that human connection in a big way. At least I know I have. I'm super, super excited about next month getting into networking in person again, shaking people's hands again. And
you're a handshaker. Are you a hugger? You like hugs too?
Big time hugger.
This is it's the huggers out there that miss all the in-person stuff. It's the handshakers, that's okay too, but the huggers really miss the in-person stuff.
Well, and it's because we miss that human connection. I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict, and when the facilitator of the group I was in, like, I put my daughter into long-term drug treatment and put her in there to save her life, and I saved my own, which is a whole other story. But he said, go do the research. So I did. It was like a week into recovery, and I'm starting to realize that maybe I am an alcoholic. Well, I probably knew that a long time ago when I was 17, but I found this video online about addiction, and it was this ex-Air Force fighter pilot. He was actually a flight surgeon for the Blue Angels, talking about how addiction ruined his life. He was actually appointed to be the flight surgeon for the Blue Angels demonstration team. He goes, man, I got to get my shit together. And he was trying to get off the narcotics that he was on for the last 4 or 5 years. And so he went to his CEO and said, hey boss, I think I have a problem with drugs. And so he, of course, in the Air Force, he promptly was arrested and thrown in Leavenworth for a year. So he had a year to unpack, how he got addicted. And in our survival instinct part of our brain, he said there's the 3, sex, shelter, and food and water. He said, but there's a 4th one most people don't talk about, and that's where addicts really struggle with, and that's social belonging.
Mhm.
And when he said, when you look at it, you go right back to days when we lived in caves. He said, we didn't live in caves isolated. Like
No.
everyone lived in that cave.
Yep.
Right. And so that's the big part that we miss. And as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we sometimes end up in that same space of where we feel like we're isolated. We're the only ones in that raft in the middle of the ocean.
I think it's quite often.
And that is so not true. I mean, I know
Yeah.
I felt like that many a time.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I'm so excited about building virtual networks around the globe so that we can connect like-minded business owners together, like you and me,
Mhm.
to help support each other, build relationships, and then help each other grow, right? Which is really,
Sure.
really cool.
Yep. Isolation can happen in all kinds of ways. You can be in a room full of people and still feel isolated.
Oh, for sure.
It's belonging is really something inside of yourself more than it is external to you. Just because you're in a room full of people, you have the choice as to whether you feel like you belong or not. It isn't up to them to make you feel like you belong. It's up to you to decide you belong.
It's an inside job, right? Like
It
you
is.
have to love yourself first.
Yes.
Happiness is an inside job. It's not the destination, it's a journey.
As much as people hate it, most of it is an inside job. A lot of people want to blame everything external to them, but truly, most everything is an inside job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. I agree 100%. 100%. So in talking about all the stuff that you do, I'm kind of curious as to what your why is. Like, what's your purpose in what you're doing?
You want to know my big why, do you?
I do. I'm digging into it. And
oh my gosh.
And I want to give you a little background about why that is. And it's, for me, it's important because as a business coach, a lot of business owners struggle with trying to grow their businesses. And most of it is because they don't really have a reason why, like they don't have a purpose. And if it's just about making money, that's good, right? It's okay. But the business won't survive if there's no purpose. It has to be something bigger than the money, because the money is the lifeblood. Like cash flow and profitability is the lifeblood to your business, but that's not the sole reason why it exists.
Very true. And when someone says to me that they're in it just to make money, I say, okay, so what is the real reason? Because they've got to be making money for something. What is it? What's the real reason?
Right.
I don't let them off the hook with to make money. That's a cop out.
It is. Absolutely.
There's a real reason behind it. My big why, not only do I have 2 grandchildren who I'd love to leave something to, but beyond that, I have a real desire to build a community, a literal physical community that will support people who need respite. Because one thing I've noticed because of my disability is when I needed respite care, I couldn't get it.
Okay.
And one thing I've also know is there are so many people struggling. They're just barely functioning because they haven't had a break. They need that break and they can't get it. And I have a real heart for wanting to have a place where people can come for 2 or 3 months just to get respite care, to get their perspective straightened out, get their head on right, put their hands in the soil, take long walks, go out and pet the horses, enjoy the dogs, whatever. Have a place for people to just recover themselves. With everything that's gone on, especially over the past few years, and there's so much stuff going on in the world now, there's no place for people to really just take a break from the world.
No, there's not. And what I see is, the way the economy is right now, nobody can take 2 to 3 months off without putting themselves in really serious financial hardship, right?
Probably not, but they could if they were supported.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the whole purpose of it. We have to build community in a physical space, yes, but community outside of that physical space, which will provide some support. So whether it's through employers, if they're business owners and entrepreneurs, let's work it into their business where they can take the 2 or 3 months off. Let's make sure that their business is supported and that they're supported. there is nothing worse than having someone operating on fumes 24/7, 365 days a year.
So true. That is so true. Like self-care is a big part of that. And I really like what you're talking about there, because I think right now, more than ever, business owners have the ability to create and affect change in this world, positive
They
change.
do. They
Right?
do.
You know,
Yeah.
I was on a faith-driven entrepreneur session here. We just finished up this week, actually yesterday, and part of it was they were talking about, you know, back when Christianity was just getting going, business owners were a big proponent of spreading the word, simply because it was a good thing. And when we talk about respite care and we talk about abundance, and you've heard me speak a lot about world abundance, you know, I think as business owners, more so than ever, we've got that ability. Like we're not hog tied or hobbled or handcuffed by bureaucratic red tape and government bureaucracy. If we see a need, we can go affect the change that need, like to solve it in a short period of time. We just got to put our entrepreneurial spirit to work, raise some funds, and go nail it, and it's done. And I think you're absolutely right. Business owners around the world, we need to come together and look at how we look after our people, because you know, there's lots of companies out there that say, you know, our people are our greatest asset, and yet they treat them like slaves.
Oh,
You know,
terrible. Yes.
typical whitewash, right?
Plenty of examples. Yeah.
We have to look after our planet. We have to be good stewards of our planet. And if we
Yeah.
do those two things first, the profits will come. And I know Richard Branson's a big proponent of that. And I don't know if he's the one that planted it in Suzanne West's heart to do that in her oil and gas business. I had an opportunity to work with her years ago and to be a little bit mentored by her, which I felt privileged because she was being mentored by Richard Branson. She'd spent time on Necker Island with him. So I felt pretty privileged that I could get mentored by her. Unfortunately, she left this world way too early. And but she was the first one that I ever heard speak of, especially in the oil and gas world, about people, planet, and profits in that space. She called it the triple P bottom line, or the triple bottom line, which is really, really powerful. And I get excited about that, because as business owners, if we can help business owners grow their revenue, like I've got put over here, creating predictable growth in their revenue, they can give back instead of struggling, you know, to make ends meet. They can actually be in a profitable position where they can give back to their community.
That's all part of it. But it comes down to the individual and how healthy and whole that person is.
So,
you know, part of this is what we tell ourselves every blessed day, you know, in our head, in our heart. What are we telling ourselves? What words are we using? And then how are we conveying how we feel, what we think to other people, even our loved ones, not just our businesses. But part of it also comes down to being aware of our impact on other people, and being aware of their impact on us, and how willing we are to buy into someone else's expectations.
I think you said a really powerful word there. You said it twice, and it's being aware.
Yes.
I think we, as human beings, we don't know what we're doing until we're aware of what we're doing. And you know, I look at my own life. You know, I spent 40 plus years in addiction and alcoholism at a very high level, and I wasn't aware of the pain and chaos I was creating in my world. You know, I thought it was all somebody else's problem because it wasn't hurting anybody but me. I was the only one drinking. I was the only one using drugs. Didn't hurt anyone else, right? But until I became aware, until I got into my recovery and became aware, oh man, right? I look at my life as, you know, when I was driving the bus, the 747 was crashing in the rearview mirror. Like it was just chaos. I now like my higher power drive my bus, and you know, like looks pretty good back there now.
Yeah. But it all comes down to also not only your awareness, but what you're intending. What's your intention? Intention is such a powerful energy to employ. When you're intentional, you take care. You take care of what you say. You take care of what you do, because you are aware of your impact and your influence, and you intend a particular route forward for yourself, but also a beneficial outcome to everyone around you.
Absolutely.
So intention is powerful.
Absolutely it is. I think you're right. Awareness and intention. There's tons of information out there, tons of books on, awareness and intention and stuff. But what would you say to our listeners, if they're serious about creating that intentionality in their lives and creating that awareness that they start to be better human beings? What would you, and I don't mean to say that in a bad way, because I think we all have room for improvement, right? Especially me.
Yes, there's
But
always room for improvement.
what can the business owner that's struggling, trying to get stuff put together, what can they do so they can be more intentional? What would you recommend they do?
I recommend they better figure out who the heck they are in the first place.
That's a good one. Yeah.
If you don't know who you are, then nothing works. And one of the ways to know who you are is to decide exactly who you are right now in this world and what message do you have that is so important that if you were to die in 5 minutes, you want people to know what that is.
Ooh, I like that.
Do you know that message that comes through has to be the essence of who you are? And until you can get to that place, you really don't know who you are, because that message becomes foundational for everything else that drives you forward, not just in your personal life, but in your business life.
And I think you're right. A lot of us, there's, I know both my grandmothers and some of my family, some friends that I know have passed away, and I don't think they ever knew truly who they were.
Mm.
Right?
But we get to decide that.
Yeah.
If we listen to someone else saying this is who you are, it's not who we are. It's who they think we are.
That's them in imposing on us expectations of how we should live our lives.
Yes.
Instead of us, letting our true passion and our true purpose shine through all of that and go out and create it. I'm one of my favorite business books is Good to Great by Jim Collins, and he talks about the hedgehog concept in there. And that's, what are the one thing that you're so passionate about that, you do it for free because it's so much fun and you have so much passion. And then the other circle of that hedgehog concept is what can you be the best at the world at, right? Maybe not what you're doing right now, but what could you be the best in the world at? And then the third circle is what's your economic driver behind that? Like, how do you make money doing that? And he said, when you can bring all three of those together where they overlap and have clear understanding, then you can use that understanding with intention and awareness and go out and make a difference.
I think I don't know who said it, but there's something about a talent stack. So, if you've got your passion and you've got your purpose and you've got the economic wherewithal, that's kind of like a talent stack. If you get all that in alignment, you're really powerful. But a talent stack is taking all the things you know how to do and putting them together, and in a way that's kind of like, making bread. You bring all kinds of ingredients together, and at the end, you get this wonderful loaf of bread. You put all your talents together and you get this wonderful human being. But those talents complement each other and they become the basis for who you are, what you do, and what you decide to do as a business person. That's the way you need to move forward. If you try to fit into someone else's expectations of what you should do in your business, you're never going to succeed because it isn't who you are. You've got to align your business with who you are, not the other way around.
Would you say that that's really important, especially in this world of social media?
Yes.
That who you are comes through in all your social media stuff and what you portray.
Whether you like it or not, you can't hide it. It will come through in everything you write. It will come through in everything you say. It'll come through in the way you deport yourself, your manner, the way you make deals. All of it comes through.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. There's no way you can actually hide it. But becoming aware of it is the icing on the cake. You become aware of it, then it's like, I've got this wonderful tool I can use because this is who I really am. But most people never take the time to find that tool, and they don't realize just how powerful it can be.
Absolutely. And the reason why I brought that up about alignment, especially social media, is I've got a bunch of social media stuff out there, and I thought it's all really good. And then I just hired a new social media marketing lady, and before I even hired her, she stalked me on social media. And I go, that's a little creepy. But she said, well, she went and stalked me to find out who I was on social media. And then after our interview, our one-on-one we had, she goes, well, the person that I seen on social media is not the person sitting before me in this Zoom call. And she goes, what I do is I help people align that. So I think it's truly important. Like me as an alcoholic and an addict, I used to hide behind the Actors Guild, if you will. I could fake it really, really well. I could put on my suit and I could go to downtown Calgary and I could sell $100,000 containment because that's what I needed to do and I could make it happen. In recovery, though, I need to be honest with myself. I need to be true to myself. And, imposter syndrome kicked in a real big way. And I struggled with that for a very long time. And I still struggle with it at times. What's interesting, though, is, and I read this here not that long ago, and it was empowering, is if you as an entrepreneur are struggling with imposter syndrome, get excited, because it means you're pushing the edges of your envelope. And out where we're playing as entrepreneurs, there are no rules.
There are no rules.
We're making them up as we go. And so if you're facing a little bit of that imposter syndrome, but you're true to yourself, get excited because you're about to have a really big breakthrough.
Well, you are. Part of what I think we forget is that we create our own world, our own reality, our own little environment in which we operate. No one does that for us. We do it ourselves. It's whatever is acceptable to us and whatever we can tolerate, as you said earlier. That's part of the way that we experience who we are, is through the creation of our world. Everyone creates their own little world, and sometimes they overlap with somebody else. It's like, I don't know, there's an advert over here, and it starts off with circles and, you realize their Venn diagrams are doing. And the catch line at the very end is, I really love it when a Venn diagram comes together. Well, it's the same. When we create our little worlds and we overlap with someone else, it's like a Venn diagram coming together. That overlap is the really strong bit. Wherever we overlap with other people, it can also be a very unfortunate bit, because sometimes we end up in conflict with others. It doesn't have to be conflict. Yeah. Well, it just means there's differences.
Exactly. And differences allow for opportunities for a breakthrough in an area that you wouldn't have gone down, especially if you can manage that conflict or that difference of opinion in a positive way. Right?
If you can do that, yes.
It reminds me of, I was listening to a Tony Robbins podcast, and he was talking about how, I think it was President Reagan got him, one of the presidents anyway, they got him to get Gorbachev. They said, look, we're so swamped, we can't escort Gorbachev. We would like you to do it. So could you go to New York, pick up Gorbachev in your jet, and then fly him to California? And Tony Robbins, he said he was really, really busy, but he said, you know what, he couldn't miss up on that opportunity. So he did it, went and got it. He had Gorbachev in a plane ride for 4 hours, and he started unpacking a bunch of questions, and he was just starting to pick his brain, and Gorbachev was kind of like, don't talk to me. But finally he got him to talk, and he asked this question, how did you know you could, when we're talking about bringing down the Berlin Wall, how did you know you could work with Ronald Reagan? And he shared this story with me, and it was so powerful. And I hope every other listener that has heard it has been able to use it the same way I did. And he was talking about Gorbachev and Ronald Reagan were in the Oval Office, and they were screaming and yelling at each other about the pros and cons of communism and capitalism, right? Like they're both red-faced. Finally, Ronald Reagan got up and he walked away from sitting on the couch, and he went to his desk and he said, this isn't working. He turned around and he goes, hi, my name's Ronald. Can we start again? And he said, at that point, Gorbachev said, I knew I could work with Ronald Reagan. And it really highlighted a really powerful conflict resolution piece that I actually employed with a conversation that, I shouldn't say a conversation, an argument my wife and I had sometime later. And it was really powerful because we were arguing about something. And I was after a certain outcome, and it was at the dinner table, and my son was there. And pretty soon my son was bawling because he thought he was the cause of it all. And finally I just said, look, this isn't working. I got up and I walked away. let the emotion calm down. I came back to my wife and I said, look, that didn't go the way I wanted. Can we start again so that you can see my side and I can understand your side? And we got into a really good conversation that we wouldn't have had otherwise. I didn't get my way, but but it built our relationship at a deeper level because of that. And I wanted to thank Tony Robbins for doing that, because if I hadn't listened to that podcast, I wouldn't have been able to employ that tool.
Mhm.
And I hope everyone else that listens to that podcast or even listens to this one can take that tool and use it in conflict resolution and say, look, take the emotion out of the conversation, walk away, cool down, come back and say, hey, that didn't go the way I wanted. Can we start again?
Mhm.
Because that
Well,
allows you to build that, like you said.
emotion is one of the bugbears we deal with in our human condition, because emotions can cloud so many things, our judgment, our thoughts. Our emotions can get carried away even before we think they're getting carried away. But we have a choice to master our emotions just like we master our thoughts. And part of that is becoming aware of them and not letting them run away with us and not letting them rule everything, but understanding they're just emotions, just like thoughts are just thoughts, and we can make a choice.
Well, and I think you're right there. It's important to understand that there's an opportunity for us in the moment of choice to stop, pause, be aware of that emotion and how it's going to affect your decision, and then proceed. Stephen Covey talks about in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, is in that moment, you pause, reflect, and then make a decision.
Mhm.
And how many people, especially kids, how many people just react to a situation and let emotion make those decisions?
There you
We're
go.
talking full-grown adults, and we don't have to look very far down the street. But I mean, if we want to get a good picture of what that full-blown reaction kind of stuff looks like, just turn on your government, House of Commons, or what do they call it in the States?
Well, the Senate, the House,
The Senate, the House. Just watch how everyone reacts on the opposite sides of the aisle. I mean, they
yeah,
act like kids. Like
they
they
do.
act like kids having emotional pity parties.
Yeah.
And I'm going like, I had a friend of mine ask me, he goes, why don't you run for office? And I said, I wouldn't have the patience. I'd kill somebody because they're misbehaving, right?
I've given up the playground a long time ago, right?
And
Yeah.
so, as business owners, how do we navigate that world of emotion and intentionality and purpose and awareness, and still run a business in the midst of all of that?
Well, the one thing that really strikes me today, Wes, is that there's a lot of fear and uncertainty about, and they're compounded if we choose to by allowing our emotions to run rampant. You know, Fear doesn't need to be there if we're willing to take a step back, take a breath, pause for power, and look at things in a more objective way. The worst thing that could happen to anyone isn't losing their business. It's not the worst thing. And when we catastrophize, which we do a lot when we're fearful and uncertain, everything gets blown up out of proportion. If we step back and really start counting our blessings and allow that fear to dissipate, then we can start really looking at things a bit more objectively. And if we ask for help, remember we were talking about building a community of business supporters, people who support each other. If you reach out and ask for help, trusting full well that whoever you ask for help from is not going to take advantage of your vulnerability, and that's part of the community spirit, then you may find there's an answer you haven't even considered. Asking for help is a big part of being a human being that we all seem to neglect, because I think people think it's a weakness. But if you ask for help, it can be a real strength.
Well, that is so true. I wrote down pause for power because I think that's a powerful statement right there. And asking for help is huge. I think as business owners, I mentioned this before, we all feel like we're alone. But when you look at all the successful business owners out there, even Elon Musk, right? Richard Branson, all those guys, they didn't get there by themselves. They all got there
No,
because they had a team, they had support system, they had
they had a
mentors, they
support
had
system.
coaches, they had all of that stuff put together.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
for the small business owner that's struggling, you can get help. Ask for help.
You can get help. You can get help without even having to seek it so much. One thing that really occurs to me is that we never ever seem to take advantage of the people in our periphery, in our immediate periphery, who have insight and expertise because we don't ask them to be part of our team.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to hire them. It's not about hiring them. It's about, look, I have this expertise and you have that expertise. If we partner together just to support and encourage each other, to share our wisdom, to share what we know, then we can help each other succeed.
Absolutely.
And when you help someone else succeed, you succeed.
Sure. That's the part where you raise the tide for all the boats.
And you don't even have to stop with one person. You can talk to someone else and say, so and so and I are getting together because we realize that we don't have all the answers. And we'd really love you to come in too, because we don't have all the answers. And
this is why masterminds are so powerful too, right?
they can be if you want to couch it in that way.
Yeah.
But I can't see anyone truly being a success without having successful people around them who are helping them in some way. So asking for help can be a real strength, and it can be a strategic advantage. Just ask for help.
And that reminds me, back when I was, I don't know, about 4 years into my fourth business, my oil and gas service business, I got so frustrated. I knew I couldn't keep going the way I was. I needed to get some help. I just knew it. And it's funny, that old saying, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. Well, that's essentially what happened with us. We hired a coach, and in a few short months, put enough stuff together, we doubled our revenue back to back 2 months or
Yes.
2 years, right? So 1 year, second year, back to back. We fired the coach actually 4 months into the whole process because we didn't see the value. And I often look back at it now going, if I had that coach involved or I had gotten an advisory board involved, right? Which is, an advisory board is different than an actual board of directors. Advisory board's mostly voluntary. But if I'd had someone in that space to guide me through there, I might not have gone bankrupt in 2015 when the oil prices crashed. Like that year, we lost 80% of our revenue in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Went from doing like 20,000 wells a year they were drilling to less than 5,000 in that last year. And the same competitors were all there fighting over, 75% less work.
Sure.
So
Sure.
it can get pretty ugly. But I like what you said, pause for power and ask for help, because it's there. The help is there. We just need to be willing to reach out for it.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely want to encourage anyone that's listening, if you're struggling with that, reach out, ask someone for help, ask them for guidance, ask them for a referral. Say, hey, I'm struggling with this in my business. Do you know anyone that can help me out? Right?
Yeah,
Makes it
exactly.
simple.
Exactly. Make it simple. It doesn't mean you have to take on board everything someone tells you, but take on board what you can use and then give back. Give them something of value they can use.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like that give back, because I think as business owners, like I mentioned earlier, we can affect change in the world, but only if we're willing to give, right? My goal, my purpose, my why, as you've often heard me say, is to create world abundance through business success. And it needs to start with that next business owner I work with, or the next business owner I talk to, about how they can create abundance in their world, in their lives, and in their
Mm-hmm.
community, and change. And I often think, if we were able to, help 1,000, 100,000, 1 million business owners all create that abundance in their communities, what would change in their communities? Would hunger, poverty, crime, would that all disappear? I'm sure it would. Have you ever heard of there's a report that a thesis that some guys did at a university, I think it was in Harvard or Oxford, about the broken window theory?
No, I haven't heard that one.
No, so
tell me all about it.
Well, it's interesting, because the broken window theory, they say if you take a brand new subdivision and you
Yes.
break a window in one of the houses, its direct proportional event will happen is the longer that window goes unbroken, the faster the suburb will dive into a slum,
Yes, very true.
right?
Very true.
And so
I
if
didn't
that
need the
window,
report to know that, but yes, very true.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and your housing prices will also decrease quite quickly because everything will start to nosedive. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's I found that was interesting simply because if things go left unfixed, not only in your community, right, it'll but in your business too. But if you're as a business owner, you can see that, hey, and this used to happen years ago, when we had one room schools, right?
Yes.
We didn't count on the government to come and shovel the sidewalk for us. We didn't count on the government or the city to come and put wood in the fire. It was all up to the parents. You wanted a kid to go to school, you chipped in and helped out. And I think in this modern day and age, because we have mom and dad both go to work and they have to do that to put a roof over everybody's head, that sense of community is lost. Like, I don't have time to volunteer. I don't want to volunteer. And so it doesn't happen. And I get excited about kind of creating this abundance in the community through businesses so that they can start to give back again. And they can
Mhm.
start to, if they don't have the time, they can go
Mhm.
hire somebody to go shovel that sidewalk. They can hire
Mhm.
somebody to go flood the ice rink so they can go skating. They can hire somebody to go mow the grass so they can play soccer. There's all kinds of things that can happen. And if that kind of giving back to the community takes place, those kids, the crime rate that is out there right now because kids don't have anything to do is going to change. And there's going to be a transition from crime back into having fun as a kid because they have a
Yes.
future.
I do wish it were that simple.
But it is. It's very. I think it is very simplistic in belief.
Yeah.
So can we do that? I don't know, but I certainly that's my goal to try
Yeah.
and make a
I don't
difference.
know either. I do know that one thing that has definitely fallen away is the sense of family and community in that respect, because people move away from where they were born or they move away from their family units. I mean, if I think about my own family with my sisters, um, I'm here in England and all of my sisters are in the States, but most of them aren't even in the same state,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So thinking about that family as it used to be, you had people around you to help you take care of things. Now we have to rely on neighbors and we have to rely on strangers and we have to rely on what we can afford to do for ourselves. It has put increased pressure on so many facets of our lives because we've become quite isolated in the simple fact that families don't stay together.
that is so true. That is so true.
And we don't have to have our families around us to have family around us. Sometimes your neighbors can become your family.
Yeah,
Sometimes even online, people I know online are more like family to me sometimes than even my own sisters at times.
well, true. And you build your network. The network that you build around you, and I often say this in our meetings, is our network is equal to our net worth. And so, we end up becoming closer and closer as a network to support each other in our growth and
Mhm.
in our business. That I'd be willing to say that anyone in my network that I have a good relationship with, I can pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm struggling. Can I talk? And
Mhm.
I'm sure that they would listen. And
Yeah.
that is a very powerful statement about those connections that we make in a network, right? And
Yes.
and I like to
Yes.
share this with people. If you look around if you dig out your wallet or your pocketbook, and you don't like what's in it because it's pretty skinny, maybe have a look at your network because it might be exactly why your wallet's so skinny. You want
Yeah.
to you want to put yourself in a position where you're around people, and I think Norman Vincent Peale talked about you're the sum of the 5 people you hang around with the most in the books you read, right? And so I
Mhm.
often, I've been making it a intentional purpose to grow my network and level up my networking as we go. And I mean, this is why
Mhm.
I'm part of the ACA and the syndicate, is because of that level of network. I mean, there's people in those
Exactly.
groups that inspire me to be a better leader, inspire me
Yes.
to be a better business owner.
And they stretch you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
we can't get complacent in what we think we know and who we think we are. We change every single day. You know, our core essence doesn't change, but we change every single day. So flexibility is key, but we can't become complacent. We can't rest on our laurels. We always have to stretch.
No,
So
definitely true. You know, especially in business, like if you rest on your laurels, you've stopped growing. If you stop growing, you're dying.
yes, very much so.
And so, yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
I'm not sure where we can go with this next, but I'm sure if we unpack something else, so we'll be here for another hour. So we've been like 45 minutes into this.
Oh,
and,
wow.
and I'm super, uh, you know, I just want to thank you. I mean, we got into some pretty deep stuff there, and I liked where it went. And I think there's going to be some really cool gems in there. So I'm looking forward to you and I not only getting to know each other at a much deeper level, of course, but working together and then looking at how we can support others to do the same. And so I'm really excited
What it's
about.
all about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited about where we're going to go from here. So again, I wanted to thank you very much for allowing me to do this this conversation with you, and I'll have it up on YouTube and Vimeo here in the near future, and I will send out all the credentials so you can share it out with your network and all that good stuff too.
Wonderful.
So super,
Thank you,
super
Wes.
thankful.
No, it's been a real pleasure. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much.